Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. In today's review, we're going to be looking at the T.C BOXES Tray Canopy package. I've had this on the ute for a little over a year now. We've travelled Australia, done a half lap, and I figured it's a good time to review the product and tell you the goods, the bads, and the uglies. Let's get into it. So just to give you guys a rundown of the full package, it's a 1650mm tray and jack-off canopy in black. It's got flared wheel guards, 70 litre underbody water tank, a 1 metre trundle drawer, one lockable jerry holder, one spare wheel holder, black whale tail locks with central lock-in, the Enerdrive Adventurer system, 4 LED light strips, one pantry slide, and one V2 kitchen. So first things first, let me run you through the pros and tell you about all the things I love about our T.C BOXES canopy. So if you've been doing your research and you're in the market for a new tray and canopy package, well, there's no doubt you will have noticed that sky is the limit as to how much you can actually spend. Now, that leads me on to my first pro. All up, this tray and canopy package cost me $24,000. That includes the battery system, all the accessories, all the additional things that I added onto it that don't come as standard. Now, you might gawk when you actually hear that price, but when you start comparing that to others on the market, you'll quickly find that you could be spending $40, $50, even $60,000 on the tray and canopy package. So $24,000 all up to get this tray and canopy package, I think it's a pretty good win. A huge factor in my decision to buy the T.C BOXES canopy was the internal bracing. Now, for the price, the build quality is pretty exceptional. It's got a 2.5mm 40x40mm RHS bracing, and all the flat plate is 3mm as well, so it's nice and solid. The next thing I loved was the beefy seals that you get on all the doors. They gave me a lot of confidence that I wasn't going to experience any leaks, and they're going to keep all that, very fine ball dust out during our travels. So when you have a look at the seals here, they're nice and thick, and that goes all the way around the door. So something else I was a little bit skeptical about at first was the paint job on this thing. Now, the whole thing is powder coated, but I was a bit worried about how that might hold up against the harsh Australian landscape. Now, we've taken this thing down plenty of narrow tracks. It's gone up against a lot of bushes, things poking it in the side, and it's not to say it doesn't have minor pinstripes, but all things considered, it's held up very, very well. So what I'll do next before we jump into the cons is I'll give you a bit of a run through of the different things that I got included and kind of how that stood the test of time as well. Now, depending on the overall length of your tray will depend on sort of how much storage you can actually get on your tray. That being said, this is a 1650mm tray. This is what the underbody drawers look like. Now, I will say they have got a pretty good seal on them. You can sort of see that compression there from the whale tail. You don't really get any leaks, you don't get any water. It keeps the dust out pretty good, sort of considering its position on the car. So I've been very pleased with how that's been. Now, I won't spend too much time on these next couple of items, given that it's a jerry can and a spare wheel holder. It's kind of in the name. But what I will say is, again, the quality's been really good, nice and sturdy. It's pretty good where the hinges are located. It means you've got great access to actually get your jerry can out. Should you be carrying anything like water instead of diesel or something like that, it's got space here if you wanted to have like a little tap on the side of your jerry can. Spare wheel holder, as I say, is pretty straightforward. There's not much to it. This is what they call the Tourer edition. I couldn't really tell you exactly what the difference is between that and their sort of standard version, but yeah, that's what it looks like. And again, that just gets bolted straight through into the RHS inside, nice and solid. Another great extra that I had added in was the ability to keep my parking sensors on this thing. So as you'll see there, I've got the parking sensors built into the back of the tray. It's also got space under here. These are basically just covers for, I think, what they call the radar or sonar. That's basically where I'm reversing. It tells me if someone's about to walk behind me. Albeit a very dirty but reverse camera there. And this is the trundle drawer. Trundle drawer handles just located under the hinge there. Pull that out. So this is the 1 metre version. I typically keep just bits and bobs, some spares in the back there, pegs, that kind of sort of stuff, bit of fishing gear. Now round onto the driver's side, I'll show you what this side of the setup looks like. So one thing at the time that they didn't really have any options for was so much shelving or like an internal fit out. I know that they have recently launched a new TCX range, which kind of does have a lot more options, flexibility in how you can kind of set up the internal of your canopy. Anyway, at the time, as I said, that wasn't available. So I opted to just make my own stuff. So I've just used a bit of ply, marine carpet in there to make some shelves and kind of just, give us a bit of a setup as to what suited our needs. And that's where the battery is, just tucked up behind the back there. There's not too much more to show you on this side of the car. All right, moving on to the sort of internal kitchen setup we have on this side. It's probably my favourite side, well, I suppose the side that gets used absolutely most. So here we have is the V2 kitchen slide and then TC BOXES pantry slide. I'll run you through what this looks like. So I pull this out here. Again, it's got some great slides on it, it's super easy. There you are, and that's what that looks like. So it's really fantastic. It's kind of an all-in-one station, washing up, chopping preparation area, and then sort of this is typically where we put our camp stove on top of that. And really it just means you can have everything there immediately to hand. Then you have your TC BOXES pantry slide. Now, if you watched our honeymoon half lap series, you would have seen how well that our pantry slide and setup served us. Obviously, we spent pretty much every night for 3-4 months on the road, basically just prepping food off this thing, and it has been absolutely probably my favourite thing about our setup. So it's really handy. You've got your pop down kitchen sink like that. Again, that's removable, chopping boards, and again, typically what we have used for our gas barbecue. Now, our battery system's through Enerdrive. However, TC BOXES also installed that at the time of fitting off our Tray Canopy to the car. So it was super nice and convenient that we could drop the car off, and basically when I picked it up, everything was done, everything was fitted off, working absolutely perfectly, and it's been the most reliable system ever. I've absolutely loved having it, and it's just made living on the road just that little bit easier. So I won't go into too much detail about it, but I opted for the Marine screen, so it just gives you a bit of a run through on what your system currently looks like. So that just sort of obviously tells you battery percentage there, tells you kind of with what I'm using at the moment, how long the battery will last for, and then just tells you sort of your loads. So I've got obviously the fridge, currently not pulling anything, but then loads, we've got the lights, and it tells you what the DC to DC is bringing in as well. And then it's just got a built-in temperature sensor too, just so you know what your battery is sitting comfortably at. Obviously got an array of plugs as well, just typical 12 volt plug, a couple of USBs, 2.4 amp USBs. Then up here you've just got your sort of switch panel. So at the moment I've only got my 12 volt pump, my water pump, and then lights on this so far. I've got a couple of spares there so that I can add to. Down here is the 2000 watt inverter. So you just got to hit the button and turn that on. It's been absolutely fantastic to date. And as far as reliability goes, this thing has been absolutely incredible. So something else I had added in at the time of install was 4 LED strip lights. So that's 2 on each door. So you've got one on the actual door itself, and then one that sort of just sits inside the canopy. So I just flick the switch on here. As you can see, that's the white on at the moment. If I can turn that one on too. Just sort of helps light the actual inside up of the canopy a bit better. And then these also, I think what they call tri-colour, so you can turn the white off and then put amber on, or you can run both at the same time if you wish. And that's the same for these lights and the ones on the other side too. Okay, so I've run you through all the pros and showed you everything that I love about this canopy. Let's look at some of the ugly stuff. So the first one really isn't that bad, but it's just something I would have liked to have seen available at the time of the build. I now do believe that it is available with their new TCX range, so it's clearly something they've thought about. They've taken some feedback on board from customers, which is always good to see. Anyway, that is a false flaw. The option wasn't there at the time of build, so I can't really call it too much of a con, but it would just would have been something that was nice to see available, to have that option. I basically just knocked up a very cheap false flaw. All that meant is that things like the V2 kitchen slide and the pantry slide, they kind of all have different bases on them. I'll show you what that looks like on the pantry slide. As I mentioned, they all sort of have different profiles at the bottom, So like this one here, for example, wouldn't have required a actual false floor. So the next con is the central locking that I've had put into this thing. Now, central locking doesn't come as standard, that was an optional extra. Anyway, I opted for that just for convenience. I wanted to know that when I'm locking my car, I'm locking the doors of the canopy too, just because, you know, we keep, obviously, we've got our fridge, we've got all sorts of stuff kept in the back here for large periods of time, and so it's nice to know that that gets locked every time you lock your car too. Unfortunately though, sometimes it does play up a little bit, and what I mean by that is when I've hit the button on my key to lock the doors, sometimes they've locked, sometimes they haven't, sometimes only like one of them is locked and the others haven't. And so what that's actually meant is I've sort of had to go around and use the manual key to unlock some of them that haven't unlocked. It doesn't seem to sort of reset itself. In the grand scheme of things, it's been relatively minor, as in it hasn't happened all that often, but just when it does, it is a pain in the arse. This is kind of the exception for the seals. The seals have been really good for the rest of the car, but for this trundle drawer, they've been a little bit disappointing. It just seems to let in that fine ball dust, whereas the others haven't. So I'll show you what that kind of looks like. As you can see, there is a thick layer of dust there, so they are working to a degree, but as you can sort of see, a lot of my stuff, there's a layer of dust on the bottom of the drawer there. It clearly shows that dust has got in. That being said, I haven't experienced any water come into the trundle drawer, which is great, so it's meant that all my valuables in the back here have stayed nice and dry. Probably my biggest disappointment was when we started our trip. Day one, the 12-volt pump failed, and I'll run you through sort of what happened there. But long story short, where they'd done the initial install of the plumbing into that water tank itself, where they drilled the holes for the plumbing, they'd left, or it appears they hadn't cleaned out all the plastic swarf from drilling the hole. Anyway, what that meant is that the water was obviously getting pumped through the lines, and that swarf then got to the point where it actually went into the pump itself, and anyway caused it a clog, and it just stopped working. And as you can imagine, day one of our lap around Australia, and this was absolutely the last thing that I wanted. That being said, however, TC Boxes pre and post customer services has been pretty much faultless. So the problem that I had with the 12-volt pump, I got in contact with them straight away when it happened. And at that stage I was already in South Australia. They didn't have a facility there for me to go to get someone to check it out. Anyway, they said, look, see if you can go into someone local as to where you are, see if they can fix it, and we'll cover the costs. And that's exactly what I did. So thankfully I managed to get someone to check it out the following day. They got it solved for me that very same day and put us back on the road. So that was fantastic. If you do want to see me freak out about a water tank, be sure to check out our other episode. I'll throw it sort of somewhere up here. Now, you might not think of this as a con, but for some people who really care about sort of Australian made products, this isn't one of them. It does come from overseas, sort of whilst the build of the canopy is actually here in their workshops in Australia. Everything does come imported. Okay, so to wrap things up then, I've told you the pros, I've told you the cons, and for me, like, the pros hugely outweigh the cons. So there's a lot to love about their product. For the price, for the build quality, for said price, it offers a lot. And for the minor sort of cons that I would consider, it's really not been that big a deal. What I would say, guys, is if you are in the market for a new Tray Canopy package, I'd be sure to check out their new TCX range. It looks really good, it's very modular, you can move things around, very adjustable in terms of how you set it up.